Hello, my name is Ted, and today I'm going to be talking to you real briefly about the book of Luke. First of all, what I want to establish is I'm going only with the book of Luke. I'm not John, Matthew, Mark, 1 Timothy, anything else. I'm just going to focus on the book of Luke and what he says about money. And the very first thing he says about money is found in Luke chapter 6 when he's giving the Sermon on the Plain. He says, "Woe to you who are rich. Blessed are the poor, for yours is the kingdom." So right away we're establishing something that we generally will read into, borrowing from Matthew perhaps, blessed are the poor in spirit, borrowing from other parts of the Bible. Well, he can't mean this, because other parts of the Bible says this, but I'm just looking at the book of Luke, because in the book of Luke, he develops a theology. He develops a theology of money that is contrary to what you probably have believed in up until now. So when Jesus said, "Blessed are you poor, for yours is the kingdom," he's telling the poor, you're the ones who are going to get this kingdom, not the rich, because they will be denied this kingdom. And you're saying, right now, this is contrary to everything I grew up believing in. But this is what Luke establishes, and he is going to reconfirm this in Luke 16 with vengeance. And I will tell you about it, but first of all, in chapter 12, I believe it is, there is this guy who comes to Jesus and says, "Hey, there's this unfair thing that's going on in my family's life because my older brother's getting all the inheritance, and I want you to talk to him about being fair, to being right, and share with me that inheritance." And Jesus turned to him and he said, "Beware of greed." In other words, Jesus is not going to help him have a fair anything. He's telling him, don't be greedy. Now, I'm going to go to chapter 16. I'm going to skip over some of the minor details that Luke gets into with money, but focus mostly on chapter 16, where he gives a couple of parables that are very, very powerful. And the first one is kind of the parable that demonstrates, "Woe be to you who are rich, blessed are the poor." And it is the rich man and Lazarus. The rich man is not in a good place after he dies. The rich man, based on nothing more than his wealth, is in a bad place. And Lazarus, who is the only person ever mentioned, the only name ever mentioned in any parable of Jesus, Lazarus ends up in the highest position in eternity. Now, this high position was right next to Abraham, who was the father of Israel. And the basis of him getting to that position was not found in anything he did or didn't do. It was based on him being so poor and so miserable. He was unable to take care of his own body, and he had sores and pus running out of his sores, and the dogs would come and lick them. And he sat by the rich man's gate. And the rich man passed him up every day and ignored him. In their time, their thinking, no doubt the rich man is thinking, God is blessing me in my wealth and giving me wealth because I am a good person, and I follow his commands. Lazarus, on the other hand, is cursed by God because of his sins, because he is in such a place. No doubt he had justifications like that. That was very common back then. So Jesus telling the poor that yours is the kingdom was radically different. And here with this parable, he's actually stating and reconfirming the poor got the best place because he was so poor and he was so miserable on this earth. Whereby the wealthy guy got his place in torment because he ignored that poor man. The 16th chapter of Luke has a moral lesson, and that is make friends for yourself with the mammon of unrighteousness, so that when it fails, they might receive you into eternal dwellings. What he's saying, make for yourselves with the mammon of unrighteousness, the money that you have. He's talking to the rich people. He's talking to people who have. Make for yourselves friends so that they might receive you into eternal dwellings when that money disappears because you're dead. What is he talking about? Well, he's already said the kingdom is going to the poor, not to the rich. So if you want to get into the kingdom that belongs to the poor, you're going to have to make some friends from among the poor. People who have nothing, people who are hungry, people who are starving. How are you going to make friends from them? You are going to have to be giving to them. Because then on Judgment Day, they're not going to be like Lazarus, who was silent. On Judgment Day, when they receive the kingdom because they are poor, they get the kingdom. When you give to them, you're buying your place in eternity. Because they will be the ones who turn to God and say, please welcome him in. He was good to us. When we were naked, he clothed us. When we were hungry, he fed us. And when we were sick, he visited us. When we were in prison, he visited us. And on that basis, you will have friends who will welcome you. Now, Luke ends up using two examples. He'll talk about a rich man who comes to Jesus and says, I want to follow you. And Jesus says, sell everything you've got, give to the poor, and come and follow me. He went away sorrowful because he had a lot. And the lot that he had was, in all likelihood, honest money. I'm guessing he inherited it. In other words, he didn't get it off the backs of the poor. He didn't steal it. He didn't force it from people. And he can't get rid of it because it is that type of money. On the other hand, you have another case where a man wants to see Jesus, but because of his short stature, he cannot. And so he climbs a sycamore tree, and Jesus, seeing him, says, come on down. I'm going to have a meal with you today. And he tells Jesus, I will give half of what I have to feed the poor. And if I've done anything against anybody, I will return sevenfold. He's buying for himself friends who will stand up for him in eternity. Now, this isn't just Luke. I'm going to step out of Luke right now because in Matthew as well, Jesus talks about Judgment Day. And when he talks about Judgment Day, he says, when I was hungry, you fed me. Talking about Jesus identifying himself with the poor. When I was in the hospital, you visited me. Identifying himself with the sick. When I was naked, you fed me. Powerless people, poor people. When we do it for these people, we do it for Christ. So do you see how the book of Luke contradicts everything we believe in? Saying that I deserve money. I deserve wealth. I deserve this. Now, I will step once again outside of Luke and The Apostle Paul says that wealth is given to us to enjoy, but also to give, that we might be rich in giving. He doesn't say so that you can get back more, because that's greed. He just says,
Now, Brother Copeland and your dear wife, Gloria, would you look at us? Look on us. Amen. Silver and gold have we plenty.
all right, back again just to the book of Luke. Luke would tell us, if he was standing before us, he would say, the poor are going to get the kingdom of heaven. If you too have money and you want to get into the kingdom of heaven, give to them. Make friends with them, because they're going to be the ones who can invite you into the kingdom of heaven. This is Ted. Have a fantastic day.